It is my current goal to beat the game of Pokemon Yellow every single week in a solo challenge using every single one of the 151 entries within the Pokedex for this game. And this week we are taking a look at Primeape. We're skipping ahead just a little bit, not by a lot, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't do two bugs back to back, especially because I did start to do two bugs back to back, and Venonat made me mad. So I decided if I'm going to be mad, let's go with one of the most angry Pokemon to exist, and that is Primeape. I mean, just look at that little, anger, pressure, whatever that's supposed to technically be. I guess like a vein kind of popping a little bit in his forehead there on the left-hand side of the screen. I love Primeape a lot. I think Primeape is a cool Pokemon. It's a great design. In the anime back in the day, he was awesome. Ash did not get to keep him for nearly as long as he probably should have, but he also probably was too good, actually. Like, that's why they also made Charizard not listen to him, right? If he had that many good Pokemon, he easily would have won, and they had to make sure that, well, he's got to continue that journey for some reason. But when you look at Primeape in the game, that move pool is pretty good. Like, it's not the best that is available, but it actually has a lot of utility. And there's even one thing in here that it's one of those things where I had an idea of what I was going to do within this game and within this run, and I forgot one element of it. And so when I get to a certain point, I kind of kept going, man, I can't believe that I'm having to deal with blank. I wonder what I could have done differently. And it wasn't until I stopped recording and literally started filming this, like I put everything into the editor, started looking at the stuff, was getting ready to start talking about these moves, and instantly clocked the move that I had fully forgotten about, despite it being in front of my face the entire time that I was recording. I just fully forgot a small piece of the plan. And so even though I'm not speedrunning today, I do know that eventually I'm going to go for a speedrun, and when I do, I know what move I'm adding into the learn set at a certain point because it's there and I won't forget it next time. But let's talk about what he does learn and what I've used in today's video. You start off strong with Scratch, Leer, Low Kick, and Karate Chop. Low Kick and Karate Chop are great moves. They are honestly very, very good. Like, Low Kick is probably the only good fighting move in Generation 1. Because currently, Karate Chop is a normal type move, which that certainly is a choice, but Karate Chop is pretty decent on the crit rate, and also the fact that our crit rate is already 18.36%, that's great when we don't have any kind of setup moves to take advantage of any kind of boosts, so that's pretty decent to have. And also, really at the end of the day, Primeape has some pretty good stats overall anyway. They're not necessarily, crazy, but they're definitely pretty good. It is an evolved Pokemon, so that should make sense, right? But outside of these four moves that we have, there are also moves like Fury Swipes, which won't really be helpful or relevant. Focus Energy will, also not really be relevant. Rage, which is actually a terrible move in Generation 1. Seismic Toss could be a great move for a Pokemon that might be struggling in the beginning of the game, but honestly, again, Primeape being such a good Pokemon is not going to need it. Screech is also, again, could be helpful in some cases, but it's not really going to help out here. Thrash is very strong, but it does also leave you confused, and when you're doing a solo challenge, I don't like to take that kind of risk, usually. But then you also can learn a lot of great moves. You can learn things like Mega Punch and Mega Kick, which both of those track because even though they are normal type moves, they do sound like fighting moves because punch and kick, right? And just based on this artwork on the left-hand side alone, this little monkey does do both, right? You also can learn the other fighting type moves, like you've got Submission, you've got Counter. Both of these things aren't really moves that I think are very helpful in this run. There's also the idea that you can do things like Hyper Beam or Takedown or Double Edge, which all of these things have great power, but responsibility. No, but they have, like a hang up, right? 2 of them do damage back to you, and then the other one, of course, has a recharge time. So that doesn't really feel like we really desperately need it. But the good thing is that we have other types of moves that we have at our advantage. Sometimes some Pokemon get stuck with only their primary type or their primary type and then normal, which can make things a little difficult for them. But here we also have access to Thunderbolt and to Thunder. We also have access to Dig. And if I really wanted to, I probably could have used Rest, but the fact that you then have 2 turns in which you can't attack and you're still taking damage, that feels like not exactly the best payoff. I know some other creators really love to use Rest. It makes me nervous. I don't know why, I just don't like to use it. The other 2 moves that he can learn that are helpful are Dig and Rock Slide, which is perfect because that is a ground type and a rock type, and that is who I'm facing right now. Some rock ground Pokemon with Brock, and I've defeated him already. That was very, very quick. I like the challenge of the base level Pokemon, but it is fun to have an evolved Pokemon, something that can just do exactly what we just watched. Pretty fun. Then Mount Moon was not really an issue at all. I probably spent a little bit longer in there than I really needed to. I fought all of Team Rocket in there for some reason. I think it was just kind of fun knowing that I could just one-shot everything, so I was just kind of doing it. And that also happens in Misty's gym. I'm basically doing that to the trainers here. If not 1, definitely 2. And that continues on to Misty herself. Staryu goes down in 2 hits. I can learn Fury Swipes. I'm not going to learn Fury Swipes. And I'm going back at it. Low Kick, I know, was not really going to do a lot of damage, but I just kind of wanted to test the waters against its defense just because they're pretty low. But honestly, Karate Chop was the right way to go. I used it 3 times. Probably could have done it in 2, maybe, I don't know. And then we beat her. So we've already gotten 2 badges in very quick succession. And we're about to go on to the rival in just a moment here. I obviously have to stop and get the hidden rare candy that's right there. In that guy's backyard. That's what you get for eating candy in your backyard. You're not paying attention. You lose a couple peanut M&Ms, I'm going to find them, and I'm going to chomp them. Now, going on to the rival, we are, once again, like I said earlier, we are 1, if not 2, shotting everything. And after the Venonat video that I filmed, I mentioned this earlier, but let me tell you, once you see it, you'll know why I said, I'm going to do one for me. I'm going to do something nice for myself. Sometimes you kind of have to treat yourself, and I think that that goes for like real life and getting like a sweet treat, and sometimes it means doing a video with Primeape. Now, the next thing I do is make my way to the SS Anne because I've defeated the whole Nugget Bridge thing, went over to Bill. That part is easy peasy. Then we make our way to this boat, and as always, I do stop by the second to last room on the left in the very first corridor because it does have Body Slam. And Body Slam only does 5 power more, but it is 100% accurate and also has the option to potentially give a paralyze effect to the enemy. So that's always a nice thing to have, and it's something good to have in my back pocket until the end. Now, what I'm also showing you here is something that I don't typically ever show, but I felt like maybe today I could, because this is a room that I drop by all the time, and I fight both trainers every time, because this is where one of the rare candies is in the game. It's also where I frequently save my game right before I exit the door, so I have a clean transition on the edits, because I like to transition on, you know, like leaving a door and everything like that. This is a place, and see, I always step out, then I come back in, I save the game, and then I walk out, and that's my transition every time on this boat into the fight against the rival. So that's a little sneak peek behind the curtain for you, just a little way on like how I edit and try and make things look, I don't know, just a little bit smoother, really, at the end of the day. There's a few things that I do that probably don't help my time with any of the Pokemon, but I feel like it always makes for a better video, a better edit. I also do kind of the same thing with either that first door there, or I do something where I wait until I walk out. Something like I do some sort of transition here usually, and then I walk through the door. And I sometimes show the ship leaving, sometimes I don't. And that always transitions directly into Surge. And I know what you're thinking. This is the same level. We're both evolved Pokemon. Could it be hard? No. The answer is no. It never is. Well, almost never is. Surge is easy. Thank you. Next. We are going to make a quick pit stop. I've got to pick up an item. No, it's not because I'm going to get Mimic, but it is going to be useful later. Then I'm going to make my way over to the Celadon Gym. This is just one of those things where sometimes I do the fancy little transition where I just do the showing that I clearly get into a fight, but I don't show the full thing. Sometimes I show every fight. This is kind of one of those. I think that because it's an easier video, I kind of feel like these are the moments where I can do a little bit more chatting with the audience instead of having to kind of explain away all the choices that I'm making or anything like that. I kind of like showing the way that I think and the way that I operate, kind of the same way that sometimes I let you know that I don't make scripts for these videos. I always do these off the cuff, which is also great because a lot of the times I forget what I did or any of the weirder moments, like the time where I fully forgot that I went somewhere else to do a quick level up. I was getting ready to transition into a gym and then suddenly I was in the middle of nowhere. I like doing those things. And I also like going up to Erica, and even though she is a type that I am not very strong against, at least with Tangela, because it's the only full grass Pokemon, or just grass Pokemon in this generation, the other two Pokemon are also part poison, which, just like anything else I've mentioned in this video, I can just use Dig and it takes them down very easily. Tangela was the hardest one, needing 3 hits. And then I get to just scoot on over to the Pokemon Tower. Here is Firo, the last time we will ever see that bird Pokemon. Goodbye. It's also the first time that we are noticing that the Rattata is gone. This is one of those moments where that's why he's at Pokemon Tower, quote unquote, the favorite fan theory. But Rattata is also gone. Eevee, the only other normal type that he has, will eventually be evolved. So this team for him is truly starting to come together. But he gets defeated. We get to move on to the rest of the Pokemon Tower. And I know that because I'm a fighting type, it seems like it would be difficult, but it isn't, because I am going to let Primeape punch the ghosts.
Can we just have an intervention? Jeremy, you can't punch a ghost.
Yeah, you
can't
Can I have an intervention? Shut the up.
That's fair.
No, in all actuality, I'm going to use the Pokédoll that I bought earlier, because this way I was able to skip all of the Team Rocket secret headquarters section. I don't have to pick up the Sylph Scope or anything like that. I don't need the EXP from that area. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I do. I really don't think I do. I'm doing fine on time, honestly. I'm 35 minutes in. I feel like I'm a little bit behind of where I would like to be. I think there's a few places already in which I could kind of clean it up a little bit. There's definitely some time later that I'll have to clean some stuff up. But once we defeat Team Rocket and save Mr. Fuji, we can move on to Fuchsia City, where I can go up against Koga. And I come into this, I'll admit, a little underleveled. This is one of those moments where I'm kind of testing a theory here. These are psychic users, and so I should have known that it would be a little dangerous to come into this not at a higher level, but there was the thought that it is an evolved Pokemon, so perhaps I'd be able to just sort of rinse right through with Dig, but I took one single loss and recognized there's no way that I'm going to kind of RNG my way through that victory without maybe a few more resets. So I move on to Silphco, and I'm going to make my way through that area very quickly. I do mostly just mandatory fights. There's a couple random fights that I do all the time, sometimes for experience, sometimes to get specific items. But I get through those, and then I heal up, I fight the rival. I technically do a secret little healing there, right? I always do like a fun little transition where I just go back and stand to exactly where I was. So again, another sneak peek behind the curtain. So that way it always has a smooth transition into the last fight against the Rocket Trio. This is also, again, like with the other departures, the things that you see kind of come and go. That team we go up against a few times, but after this one, they are definitely done. We go up against Giovanni for the second time. The team is starting to become a little bit more formidable. He has a Nidoqueen at the end. He still is on the Nidorino for the beginning. Rhyhorn is still on the team, but we have seen the loss of Onyx. I'm assuming just to kind of keep it a little bit different and a little bit fresh from Brock. I always assume that that's kind of why we have this pathway or the way that his team kind of comes together in this way. And once we defeat him, we are able to dig our way out of here and go back to Koga. We are now at level 50, which is the same as his most dangerous Pokemon, his Venomoth. And I think that it's kind of a misplay to do what I did in the beginning. At this point, Dig should be able to actually one-shot all 3 of these first Pokemon. I don't know why I went for Karate Chop, but I do get 2 digs off against Venomoth. He throws a little bit by using items, and in the end, I get the victory very quickly. That's what you needed. I also could have done some rare candies, but, you know, we'll save those for later. I'm also, again, I'm not trying to speedrun this particular run. I will on my second attempt, actually. But in this one, I'm also kind of testing the waters to see how low of a level can Primeape be. And so we'll see a couple times, I think, where maybe I could have leveled up a little bit more using rare candy specifically, just to kind of get a little bit of an edge earlier on, but it doesn't matter because honestly, even the most scary team, if you will, with Sabrina, we defeat her in no time at all. They have got really bad defense, and so as long as you outspeed, you're fine. Kind of the same goes for Blaine here. Blaine is pretty formidable, but honestly, once you've got Dig in your learn set and you've got any level of good attack, it's pretty easy to kind of cruise through Cinnabar Island as well, which means that we are still under an hour and we can make our way to the 8th gym. It's going to be just barely over an hour by the time we defeat this gym, and that is okay, I think. But like I already, like I said earlier, I know of a couple places where we could kind of clean this up a little bit. I'm nervous about, you know, when trying to do the speed run, I'm not 100% sure of all the corners that I can cut. There's some of those fights that I say that I like to do for certain moments or whatever, I probably could skip. I don't know if I even necessarily need to pick up every single rare candy either. But either way, level 55 puts me on par with his 2 strongest Pokemon in Nidoking and Rhydon. And unfortunately, for the first time, Earthquake does get the better of me. That is our second reset of this entire video. To have only 2 resets at an hour and also be on the 8th gym, I actually think is a pretty decent stat. I don't feel like that's bad at all for a Pokemon like Primeape that, like I said earlier, has some good utility, but also doesn't have a crazy amount of coverage, right? And either way, it's okay because, you know, with this particular gym, I've got at least 1 move at all times in my back pocket that is super effective. So that feels pretty good too. I actually probably could have just gone for 2 low kicks there instead of 2 digs. Would have been a little bit faster, just something to kind of keep in mind for the future. But either way, we have defeated Giovanni for the 3rd and final time. Just like his Team Rocket trio, you 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out in the old Pokemon game of Pokemon Yellow, Generation 1. We get to move on to the 6th rival team. This is the last time that he will be rival and not champion. This is also one of those moments where I'm making some interesting choices. I don't really know why I'm going for Dig. I probably could have gotten through some other moves much more easily. Execute is not really a strong or formidable Pokemon. It could hit me with something like a psychic move if he taught it any, but he does not. He does lead seed me, and that's kind of my downfall on this particular first run. I actually think that this is a pretty easy-ish fight. Really, I think the thing that I will struggle the most against is Sandslash and potentially Ninetales, weirdly. But either way, like, Kadabra's not that bad, and Jolteon shouldn't be that scary either. Cloyster probably could do some damage depending on how it operates, and especially when you're paralyzed, I feel like if you get stuck in a clamp and, oh, I forgot about Supersonic too. Yeah, that could be pretty bad. I'm also a little surprised that Low Kick didn't do much more damage than that, just because of the fact that the fighting type move is super effective. I feel like it should have been doing more damage there. I think in my head, I guess we'll get to it eventually, but in my head, I've used Low Kick against, what's her name? Lorelei. There we go. And got it to go in 1 hit, but maybe I'm remembering that incorrectly. Remembering that? Remembering that. I remember. Anyway, we are back at the cloister already at this point, and it did do better damage this time. It might just be the fact that there's a range on the move, and maybe I had a bad range on the first attempt, but we make it through very quickly. Again, Kadabra's got very bad defense, so it's not hard to get through his defenses to Jolteon. Therefore, we get to go through all of Victory Road, and we are now finally at the Indigo Plateau. I'm going to heal up, and then I'm going to go over to the PC. I'm going to drop off all of the kids that I don't need because I want that final screen to just be the one Pokemon that I've used in battle the whole time. And also, of course, it makes it much easier if I ever black out or finish or faint or whatever. I don't have to, deal with all these extra Pokemon or trying to go, oh no, just, kill all these guys quickly, please. I can actually just instantly, hit that reset. Now, this is one of those moments where I thought that would do more damage than it did. It didn't. So that does show that my memory was incorrect. That's the unfortunate side. Slowbro and Jinx both having moves that can be pretty devastating. The Psychic in terms of Slowbro, and I guess actually Jinx doesn't have a Psychic move. It just is a Psychic type, which can make it, I think, a little bit scary just for the fact that certain moves won't be all that effective. But then I thought, well, maybe Low Kick still will just because it is part ice. And I was right. I think sometimes like the sort of dual type things. Oh, yeah, and there's an unfortunate thing from Lapras. That's a little bit of a shock just because I feel like Lapras shouldn't really be that effective against me. But I did lose a lot of health against other Pokemon, specifically Cloyster and Slowbro. They gave me some pretty big damage there. This time I came back in realizing that I still had Body Slam and I could actually teach Thunderbolt. This is one of the moves. I almost forgot two moves, but this is one of the moves that I forgot that I could use. And so I attach it, and that makes this third run a lot smoother and a lot easier. Didn't need to worry about it. Therefore, we get to move on to Bruno. Bruno is kind of like Brock 2.0. He's got 2 Onix, and then he's got 3 fighting type Pokemon, and I have the only other one from this generation, so it's going to be an interesting little fighting boxing match kind of thing. We are in the ring. First Onix goes down, Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee both go down. Onix 2, the sequel, goes down, and then Machamp is not that hard because his special is pretty low, so Thunderbolt will actually do pretty good damage there. And listen, Primeape isn't really known for having a great special attack, right? His obvious thing is regular attack, but his special is decent enough that it actually, look at that, like the Golbat nearly goes down in one hit of Thunderbolt. That is using a move that does not get same type attack bonus, and of course, like I said, is a special move. So the fact that it did that much damage feels pretty great. Luckily, all the other Pokemon are part poison and not flying, so that means that Dig works on all of them, and we get through Agatha quickly, with ease, with prestige, very easily. That feels great, because she's frequently a wall, and considering, once again, Pokemon that know the move Psychic could be pretty dangerous, could be pretty scary, but Primeape gets through there to Lance, and Gyarados typically is a problem. Luckily, Thunderbolt exists. Dragonair can be a problem because they can paralyze you on the first one or freeze you on the second one. We get through them pretty quickly. Thunderbolt is actually great against Aerodactyl. And this is one of those moments where, like, the flying type, I thought Thunderbolt would do more. I couldn't remember off the top of my head. It then doesn't. And then I karate chop him twice to death. And then I heal and save. And now at level 71, having used all of my rare candies throughout this video at some point. I forgot to mention when I used them, but I definitely used them before Lorelei at one point. I went in, I think, on the first one, lower level, just to sort of see how it would go, and then I used them. And then I used a couple more here and there throughout, and then I eventually get on to the champion here. This is going to be our first loss. This is a very unfortunate section of the video. I was barely over an hour, well, I guess an hour and a quarter, and I was thinking that we could end it right around here, and that, okay, if I clean certain things up, perhaps I could get it just under an hour. And maybe I still can, but this section here does make me a little nervous about that fact. Because, unfortunately, there are a few Pokemon on this team that are kind of a problem for Primeape. Alakazam, because Psychic. Executor, honestly, mostly just because of Hypnosis. If I don't one-shot it, which I don't really have anything that's great for doing that, and then it hits me with Hypnosis, I mean, it's kind of over. Barrage doesn't do a lot, but like I said, it can just chip away. And then moves like Ice Beam or Aurora Beam, depending on what Cloyster uses. Clamp is also bad just because, again, it keeps me from attacking for at least a couple turns. It's got a lot of things that are very either chip damage or just, decent special attack kind of things going on. And then Ninetales isn't that bad, but the thing is that if I don't have a lot of health by the time I get there, it can use Quick Attack, the same as Jolteon, which unfortunately when you're down to 10 health, it's not surprising that Quick Attack can still take you down. Quick Attack this late in the game feels wild, but it helps it in this situation, right? Like, I'm outspeeding Jolteon, and Jolteon's pretty quick, but, I'm also a much higher level. But still, like, because I'm outspeeding it, it knows that I could probably just do one hit, and it's done. So the Quick Attack when I'm that low, honestly, not a bad choice on his part. One of those rare moments where a weak move can actually be pretty good for you. And that's an unfortunate critical hit. This is one of those moments where I feel like, yep, there it is again. The Quick Attack, when you get it there with 9 health, it's just, I mean, obviously, 10 health is more. Not by a lot, but it's enough. I'm feeling a little, not frustrated, but I'm definitely feeling it in this moment because I just sort of sat here for a second, kind of thought about where I'd kind of gone wrong. And this is the moment where I recognize that I wanted Rock Slide. I meant to bring Rock Slide with me for the Elite Four, and I didn't. Now, Rock Slide would not necessarily be great against some of the Pokemon that we have described, but it would give me a couple other advantages in different spaces and different times. It also means that specifically, like, Dig wouldn't have to be a thing. The other issue, of course, is that Rock Slide is not as accurate, but neither is Low Kick. So when I try to go for Low Kick against certain Pokemon, I had to reset one more time. I actually thought that was the run where I won it on. Not gonna lie. I really thought in my head that there was only 13 resets, but I guess there's 14. I certainly hope there's not another one, because in my head, I'm getting ready to ramp up this conversation. But, okay, this is a good time for going up against Sandslash. Alakazam, we make it through very easily, very quickly. This is a moment where we got very lucky with Hypnosis not hitting on the first attempt. And even though we get Leech seeded and he is starting to... Okay, Stomp is not a great move to go up against. That's unfortunate. We're down to 40 health. That feels bad. This time I go for Thunderbolt, which actually probably was the better choice anyway against Cloyster. Dig does one-shot. It does not use Quick Attack. I have 27 health, so will he attempt? No, he won't. I get the Dig off, and we have won at 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 22 seconds. 14 resets. Genuinely think that at least at this point, God, because I had so many extra attempts on the champion, I think that we can get that time down to, let's say, at a minimum or at a maximum. At a maximum, an hour 5. I think potentially, if I really practiced at it, I could get it to like maybe 55. Maybe less. I don't know. Again, I'm not really a speedrunner yet, so we'll see what the possibilities are once we get there. But I feel really good about this, even if the ending got a little frustrating, just because of how good the champion actually was against Primeape. At the end of the day, the Elite Four wasn't hard. Most of the gym leaders, no issue at all. Maybe one reset, so I feel pretty good about Primeape. I really enjoyed this video, and it made me feel happy, and I hope it did for you as well. If you're still watching and you liked it, give us a like, give us a share, give us a comment, perhaps, right? Every time you interact with small-time creators, it really helps us out a lot. Thank you so much for watching Primeape and for watching this video, and I will see you all next week for another solo challenge in Pokemon Yellow.